In this video, we're going to work with how we can put in multiple data sets the image here. And you can see here what I did. I have a trick here to make sure it will never hit the very top here. And if you refresh here, you can see the image is nicely aligned with the movements of the bars. And this is very useful and very interesting to explore. So let's start to look how to do this right now. In this video, we're going to answer one of the viewers' questions, which is how to add an image on top of multiple datasets bar chart in Chart.js. So this question came from one of my other videos about how to add an image on top of the bars in Chart.js. However, this specific video only focused on one dataset. But what if you have multiple datasets? So then the structure will be slightly different. So this question came from one of my viewers here on this specific video, which is Robin. A special thank you to Robin for asking this question. And this is what Robin says. Hiya, great tutorial. I'm trying to do this, but I have multiple 3 to 5 bars, basically data sets. How can I get the X pixel value for multiple bars? So like getting the bars X value and not the X value from the ticks. And then for example, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in this example. Alright, so I'm going to show you probably, if you've seen this specific video, it will only get here the specific value of the ticks here, and these ticks will match with the bars. However, if you have multiple data sets, your ticks will be divided over multiple bars in that same data set. So, not really on the same data set, but you have multiple data sets, and the first value will be spread over the first tick. So let's start to explore. Maybe it's probably better for me just to show you. So what we're going to do right now is this. First of all, we're going to grab our demo data, and I'm going to show you a specific website for that, which is my own website, which is Chartjs3.com, getting started. And I'm showing this, I'm using here Firefox because for some odd reason, Google Chrome doesn't recognize my site correctly. So I'm going to copy this. And once I copy this, I can close this one here, and we're going to paste this in here. Alright, so we got that. I'm going to just move this title in here. I'm going to put it in there, save that, refresh, and there we are. So now we have this. But what I was trying to say, what happens if you have multiple data sets? You see that this tick will spread over or will contain multiple bars. So that's what we're going to do right now. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to grab here a demo of, well, let's copy this data set and put it in here multiple times. So that's number 2, 3, and 4. So we have 4 specific data sets here. And now you can see what's going on is one tick spreads over or has 4 bars in there, contains 4 bars. So what I'm going to do now is just for the sake of it, just give it some different colors. So we have everyone different color. That will be more better. Let's cut this out quickly. There we are. There we are. And then I'll just put in here comma and comma. Make this solid. So next one, I would say, well, we can just take the blue here. Paste that in there. Paste this one in here. Say here 0.2. And after later on, we're going to adjust these colors. Make this one red. That will be fine. And this one as well. Transparent red. Fine. Finally, we have, I'll just get another one. I guess the third one is yellow if I'm not mistaken. So, let's see. Do we have that all correct? Yes. Yellow is the number 3, and there we are. So now we have all of these colors nicely done. What I'm going to, if I save this now, we should see different colors. Beautiful. Next, what I want to do here is just change a few values here. So what I'm going to do is here, just very simple. I make everything 3 here. You can just copy this, 3 and 3, and then we have in total of 7 times 3. Same story here. This I'll just make this 6. So I'm going to copy that. A total of 7 values of 6. That's 4, and that is here. There we are, 7. Finally here, this will be 9. Let's grab these and put in. There we are. So if I save this now, we have many different values here, which is quite nice. So what we're going to do now is basically starting to get these images in here. So how are we going to do that? We're going to create here our, basically in the options, we're going to put here a comma, and then we say here plugin. We're going to create a plugin. So we say plugins, and this plugin we can just call it, let's name it multi-bar logo. I'm just naming it something. You can use it anything you want. It could be anything what you prefer. So in here we're going to work with that. But for that we need to get the logo. So I'm going to show you, I have this logo, I store it on my desktop, but you can just get a link as well. Doesn't matter. But I get just this very simple image. This is from Chart.js. You can see their official logo. Beautiful. So I'm going to grab that one, and I'm going to do here first one thing here. In the data or in the setup here, I'm just going to say here, first of all, constant. Then we say here image 1. And if you want to have more images, I'm going to show you later on what you can do. So we say here image, we will create an image object here. This is essential because we need to create an image object, and that image object will be later inserted into the Canvas API. So then we say here, I'm going to grab this image, and then we say the source of this specific image, which is eventually the URL. That is this one here, or get the URL that you have. So once we have this, we can save this, and then what we can do now is we can start working on the items. And later on, we need to work with these data here as well. But we can start to work now with our new block, which I will call our multi-bar logo block. So we say this block, and in here we're going to say a constant, and this constant will say multi-bar logo equal. Then we have this, and then we're going to give an ID name. So the ID name is essential. This should be exactly the same here. So these and this one here are always identical. Comma. So once we have this, we're going to say when are we going to draw this? Well, I assume here in this case our timing for drawing should be after the dataset has been drawn. Then we can start to put in the logo, because we want the logo here on top. So as a layer, it should be after the data set. And the reason why is because you have the tooltip as well. If you would do it draw after, what will happen is it will be the tooltip will be behind, like layered behind, and the image will be on top, and you are not able to read certain parts of your tooltip. So I don't want that. I want to make sure that the tooltip is always priority, or has the highest priority, and should always be shown as last, clearly visible. So for that, we're going to say after. So this is our drawing timing, the timing of drawing. When will we draw this? We will say here after, and then we say here data set. So after the data set has been drawn, then we will draw this, or basically our logos. So we say here chart, args for arguments, and then we have the options here. In here, we're going to use a very short version. We can say a constant, and then CTX equals chart. So basically we're going to grab this one here. We don't need to break it down now like this. Well, you can do it like this as well, but in this case it's probably not necessary because it just equals one value. So then we say here ctx.save. Once we save this, we are now basically saving all these values stored, and recognize that this should be in the canvas. So now what we need to do here is basically get a specific item, because what will happen here now is normally we have the scale, so we grab the value, but now we want to have this specific one. To do this, we need the following. We're going to say here, I'm going to show you console log, and this console log we're going to say chart.get data set meta. Alright, and this is very important because with this you can start to see the data items. So let's see if this works correctly. CTXA is not a function. Let's see, are we correct? I guess we need to break this down here then. Am I correct? Let's confirm this. I was expecting it should not be necessary. Apparently it is. Alright, sorry about that. Normally this equals that would make sense. So there should be no view data structuring here. Or not data structuring, is the object destructuring. But for some reason it is necessary. Sorry about that, my mistake. So make sure you put in these curly braces. So we have this here. And you can see here we get all of this data, and this data is massive and might be also confusing. But eventually we must be somewhere in here where you're going to get the dataset meta. Basically the dataset meta, if you're wondering what that is, basically it is the dataset, but then in here, this is basically a new dataset, which they call a meta dataset, where you can grab the individual positioning of this. So this is not a real dataset, but it's a invisible invisible or a data set that is not visible. I guess that's the right term. If you ever heard of metaphysics, physics is something that is measurable, and metaphysics, if you ever heard of that, metaphysics basically means beyond physics or above physics or invisible. All right, so this is basically meta is related to that. So it's a data set, but it's not really visible because it's not a real data set that we have. It's just made based on these items here, because the real data set is this one here. That is basically, this yellow would be only the data set, and this one here is like an invisible data set. All right, so we have this here. So, but this here, of course, means still nothing. But if we're going to go break it down, and we're going to get from the data set the specific data, then we say here 0, then we can here .x. So if I save that one because I want the x value here, you will see here we get this. And that is related to this one. So what we can do here next is, if I go to this, I'm going to show you as well. Here we have this one, and we say here number 1. So what happened is basically going to pinpoint this one. So if I save that, refresh, and let's see, am I correct? Oh, sorry, no, I'm not. It should be on this one here. Not on the data, but that's one. So you can see here now what happens. We know that the width will be approximately difference of probably 20 pixels. Probably a bit lesser, slightly lesser, 19 plus pixels. But that is approximately the different size. And you can see here, this one is 46. Then 65 pixels, it's going, let's say 20 pixels more to the right, is this one here. And then we can see, imagine these here. And then if we will do all of these, I will grab them now. Here, this is important. So we can grab now all of these metadata sets in here. Save these. We'll be triggering all 4 of these. So you can see here, it starts this. And then you can see it goes here up to 104, which is correct because probably the width of this item here, this data is 700. So about 100 pixels or 80 pixels of space for every bracket here or every box. So this specific item has about 80 pixels, 80, 80, 80, 80, 80, and then multiply by that, and then here some space on the side, makes about 700 pixels approximately. All right, it's not that important. The only thing you need to know is basically the positioning of this. So once you have this positioning, it becomes quite easy. What we're going to do here is the following. I'm going to make here a CTX. So then we say here draw image. This image, in this case, is the one we have here. I'm just going to grab this here, put it in there. There we are. It's up here. Sorry. And then we say here basically a few items. We're going to say here what is the image we want to draw. That's the first one here. The next one will be the positioning. Where are we going to start? Well, in this case, we already have our positioning here. We can just copy this one here. And then later on, we need to pinpoint it a bit more in the center, but I will do that later on. So I just want to show you this. And then the next one will be, this is the x value. So what is the y value eventually? Well, if we have this on the x value, you probably can figure out how we grab the y value. Well, exactly the same here. We can just copy this. And then when we say here, we just say this, but then y value. Once we have the y value, then we can do your comma. And in this comma here, we can indicate the size of the image. So in this case, because you can see here how much space there is, approximately about 20 pixels, I guess. So what we can do here is, well, let's make it about 20 pixels then. So how big would be the width of the image? I would say here 20 pixels. How big would be the height of the image? 20 pixels as well. So if I save this now, and once I save this, you can here refresh, you can see here now it starts to position it. This positioning is important, but you can see I'm not satisfied, it's not on the top here. So that would mean that we need to move that up in the positioning here. So let's play around with that. So if this is about 20 pixels, so I assume that we want to push this up 20 pixels, or maybe a little bit more than 20 pixels. But you might notice that eventually we get an issue. If we have here very high values, it will hit here this. Don't worry about that, we're going to focus on that later on. So we're going to say here, if you understand how pixels work in Canvas, you probably know that this here, the higher you go up, the lower you go, for the closer you get to 0. If you go more down here, you will go higher in value. So as you can see here, oh, let me do this one more time. Please check out the tooltip. You can see here 700 by 350. 700 is the width, 350 is the pixel amount of the height. And you can see here is the position, but if you go down here, this would be about 350 pixels down, the bottom, and at the very top is 0. And this corner here is 0, 0. And I explained it as well in many other videos. I would highly recommend you to check the other video that I refer to, like this one here, where I cover also a lot about positioning. So what we're going to do here then is, let's say here, I want to do here minus 25 pixels just to push it up here. So if I refresh now, you can see now it is moving nicely, and it moves as well nicely in pixel amount. Beautiful. So we have this one, but we have one issue here. We need to move this more to the right, or sorry, more to the left. So what we can do here, exactly the same. We can do here minus. We can do here minus 25. Let's see if minus 25 is suitable. Maybe we only need to do minus 20 or something like that. You can see now we're getting too much, and I figure out why. So you can see here when it's time to draw. Let's go back here. Let's save this again, go back here. You can see it starts basically in the center, but then you have here this halfway here. So it already is in the center. So we only need to move to another bit of a center. So if you are familiar with the width difference, it's about approximately 19 plus pixels. Well, we can calculate correctly if you would say this minus that. So we can do that one. I'll just say here, let's do a console log here just quickly for the sake of it, so we know it's really clear, and so you also have an understanding what I'm doing here. Minus that, you will see the difference, and this would be the official width of the bars. So what's the official width? If you have the console log, what's the lowest value that we can find? I think it's very all at the top. You can see here 19.22. all right. So we can move 19.22, we can say 19.22 divided by 2. And we can do it like that, but most likely our image is already set on 20 by 20, so I can just say here, let's say here, 10 pixels. See if this will be really a problem if we have that one. You can see here, are we complete in the center? It's very hard to see, and if you're not satisfied with this, I would say you can just do this one. 19.22 divided by 2. So this is the real official positioning in the center. More closer than that, it is not possible. I mean, you could even do this if you really want this as well matching. Put it in here as well. You have this and this same. But all right, that's all right for now. You can see here the bar goes up as well automatically, which is beautiful. What we want to do now is, I want to put in here the next item. So how are we going to do that? So basically, if we would do this, I'm going to show you here, because here right now we're going to just grab the value, but what we need now is just also the image. So if you would have another image, you could do image number 2, and this would be then here as well, image number 2. We would do just like this, constant. Let me say image 2, and it would be something else. And then if you refresh, oh sorry, it's already identified here, of course, this, and then we put it in here. But of course you will say here, if I refresh here, does it work? Image 2. Alright, image 2. Did it work? Am I missing something here? It's exactly the same. Alright. So why is it not showing right now? Of course it makes sense, because we're not showing here the next value. So if I put in here number 1, it should be here. But hold on, it is not matching. So how do we match this? Well, if you understand, this is exactly the same here. We're going to save that. We do it like this, and there we are. So what we can do is eventually we do this for all of them. However, you would say, I will not want to do, or I don't want to do this manually for this if my charts are going to get bigger and bigger. You're right. The only one what we have to do manual at this particular moment is this here, but I'm sure I have to really figure out how we can measure how many datasets we have. I have to just check later on. Then we can usually do that as well in the loop. But for now, what I want to focus on is just on this part here. How will we grab this one here? Same story. I'm going to say here, eventually we have this one here. We can put in here. We're going to put it on 0 again. But here we put it on 1, and here as well on 1. If I do this and say refresh, you can see here now we move on to the next one. Beautiful. So with this, we can now start to really do it, but all I want to do now is I just want to do this. I'm going to grab them, all of them. I'm going to put in this here. This will be number 2. And then finally number 3. Why number 3? Because we have a array. Array starts 0, 1, 2, 3. So we say here it is, and there we have that one. If I do this one and refresh, we should have now every one of them. Beautiful. So we have this. And if you want here, because you say maybe you don't want to do this as an item, what we could do here is basically a loop. How will you do that? Basically here, or make an array. So we say here image, let's say this is an image array, equals, and then here we just grab in these. You just put these in here, and this might be image 2, we might have another one, image 3, etc, etc. But you probably know the drill by now. If you see these here, if you have those, it will just loop through this. So what we're going to do here, we have this image array. Make sure that this is a constant. I'm going to grab this image array. I'm going to give it a proper naming convention of the cattle or camel casing. We'll copy that one. So what are we going to do here? Well, what we're going to do here is the following. Let's see. What we need here is a for loop, or basically a loop. Yeah, a for loop. Then we say here let I equals 0, and then we will say here we will keep on looping I if. And then what we need to do here is the following. You can probably the most suitable way to do this is by getting here the length of one of these items here. And to make it easy, well, we could say here the length of this data here. What I will do is, just to make it very easy, I'll say a constant. Let's say data points equal this. And all I want to do really here is, and I can just replace this one if I want to. This doesn't matter really so much, although it's fine. But what I really want to do is here, I just want to get the length of it. So that if we have another data set, it will understand that there's another one. It will loop through this stuff as well. So we have this here. And then what I will say here, we're going to get the length of this. And this is length, we have to do -1. So we say here, data points. Yes. So we're going to grab your data points dot length -1. So we know that here that this will be 7 values. The length is 7 -1 because array starts at 0 from 0 to 6. And then here we say I++. So we have an incremental of this. So then we can grab this here. Let's see, we can grab this code, this chunk of code. We're going to put it in here. Proper indentation here. And what we're going to do here is to loop. Which one we need to loop? This one here. We need to loop. So that's here, say I. This is the I. We're going to change the data, will be always the I. Oh. This is I. Now I'll just copy that I, and then another I. Alright. So if I do this now, if I save it and refresh, you can see here now we have this nicely done. Alright. Can we solve this one? I will double check that eventually or later on. But what I want to solve is, this is more important. Right now you can see here the tooltip will be always on top. Let me just make sure you can see clearly by adjusting something here. So I'm going to say here plugins. Then we say here tooltip. And then I'll say here align. Y align, that's the right term. And then we say here bottom. So what I really do is the caret. And if you understand what the caret is, I'm going to show you. will be pointed down to the bottom or pointed south. So what is the caret? If I go on here, you can see here, this is the triangle, that's the caret. So that means that if it points down, the cloud must go up here. Refresh, you can see here now. Now you can see here. So the image will not overlap our tooltip here. And the reason why is because of this here. After dataset draw. If I do after draw, you will notice that we get an issue here. That the image will be on top of the layer. It's like a top layer. If you think about Photoshop, it works with layers. Same thing here. It's just the same layer. Or same coding structure, basically. Alright, so now we avoid that layer because we want to say the tooltip will be the top layer. So now we have this. I don't like this because this becomes a problem if this one, for example, this is 18 here. So let's put in some more 18 values. So if here we will have a lot of 18 values, you're going to have a massive blockage of our items. So as you can see here, so, oh my goodness, what is going on here? So there was a way in my other video I showed, but that and at that time I couldn't find the specific one. Now of course I have that specific item. It's called grace. Why it's called grace, I don't know. Grace is probably not the right term. I thought it was like a trench or a bracket or something, but it is grace. So let me show you what I'm talking about. What I really want is this. I want to make sure that the tooltip, or sorry, this bar, or basically the bar can never hit the top. It's not allowed to hit the top. So there must be always some space between. And this is essential, as you can see here, because now the image is blocking it. And this is absolutely horrible. So how can we do this? We have here the Y scale. In the Y scale, we have an option. And we're going to say here, type linear. I guess, I'm not sure if this is really necessary. You can just maybe cut this out for now. I'm going to test that if it's really necessary. But what we're going to say here is the grace. And the grace basically gives us a space amount. How much space you can say it in percentage. So let's say we want a 5% space. So it will calculate how many blocks it will be. So if I refresh here now, what is happening? There is a 5% grace, and I guess 5% is, well, if this is 20, I would expect a 1 point, but I guess that's not possible, so it makes it 2 points, and 2 points equals 10%. Fair enough. I will accept that when you can see here what is happening. There's a space between that will not block it. Even if now I'm going to put in something that's higher. Let's go in here and we say now we have not 18. We have this 100. Let's say this one. Refresh. You can see even as 100 there will be a 5% space here. Or how that is really calculated I can't say right now, but I will accept that one. But there's a space here and it will block and avoid that we never hit the very top of the chart. And that is good if you have these images here. And this is basically the way to do it. So only question is the meta set. Let me do a quick check here. Alright, so I figured out basically maybe what we could do, but I will probably make a separate video for that. However, I want to make sure you at least have the answer. How would we be able to count how many we have? But I will make a separate video for this as well. So we have this one here, and I thought maybe if we could just get the length meta set here, but no, that is not the way how it will work. So what can we do then instead? So I'm going to show you. Of course, this is the most logical one to do it. We just get the grab chart. Then we say dot. What are we going to grab? Well, we're going from here, basically from my chart, which is the chart part. We go to config, and from config we go to the data, and from data we go to datasets. Because this metadata, or this get dataset meta, is just basically the values in here as well. It will recognize how many we have. So that is basically what we do. So what I mean is we go to config, and from config we go to data. Then you should be able to understand this here from data. And then we go here to data sets. So then if we say here length, we would get eventually the value of it. So we say length. Make sure we're going to comment this out, save that, refresh. You can see here the value equals 4. So that will already give us the answer, but I will make a separate video for this where you can fully automate this, because I guess that will make far more sense eventually. So, but this video will definitely give you a clear answer. Next, if you enjoyed this video but you want to know maybe how to start to play around with tooltips, here's the one I'm going to recommend you to watch. Here's how to add more information in the tooltips in Chart.js. And basically, I'm going in every section of the tooltip where you can play around. You can see it will look maybe absolutely crazy, but of course the focus here is to really understand how you can play and modify anything you want in here. Absolutely recommendable if you want to watch that as well.